Classic error. Start the stream with your mic muted. Everyone's very welcome to another National Museums at Home event. My name is Brendan. I work for the education team here at the Museum of Country Life. And with me today, I have two very special guests. One, for those of you who follow our events, will be familiar from the last Hedgehog event. And the other, you should also know from events that we've held here, both on site and digitally with the museum. First, I'm going to introduce Elaine O'Riordan. Hi, Elaine.
Hi.
How are you?
All good. All good.
Enjoying the warm weather?
Yeah, roasting.
Is from NUIG, so National University of Ireland, Galway, but also, more importantly for us today, she's from the Irish Hedgehog Survey. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But just before we jump to that, I'd like to also introduce our second guest, which is Carmel. Hi, Carmel.
Hello.
This is Carmel Balfe. Some of you will know Carmel. Anyone who's been to the museum will know Carmel for her puppetry work, which she's done quite a lot with us here. So she's from Little Gem Puppets, but you also might know her for some of her work from Wandering Lighthouse, because she works for that group as well. And Carmel has been very kind and put a wonderful story video together for us today, and we're going to watch that in a little while. But first, if it's okay, guys, what I thought we'd do is we talk a little bit about hedgehogs today and what's important for us at this time of year. What can we do? What's happening with the hedgehogs? What's going on in their world? So I'll start, Elaine, if it's okay with you, because you're a hedgehog expert. So what's happening in the hedgehog world today, at this time of the year, rather?
This is a very busy time of the year for the hedgehogs, because as you probably know, they hibernate during the winter and they wake up then around April time. And then this time of the year, then it's all about the breeding. And so the baby hedgehogs would have been started to be born anytime now from the end of May. But usually most of them will be born in June and July. So round about now, there are lots of mammy hedgehogs and baby hedgehogs. And the baby hedgehogs, they're independent by about 6 weeks. So the first of the youngs now would be up and running and on their own at this stage. And the hedgehogs have to really make the most of the summertime and the autumn as well to feed up, because they need to eat and eat and eat and get good and chunky so that they can have enough energy reserves to get them through their hibernation in the winter. So that's what they're at the moment. They're coming out at night and they're feeding on beetles and earwigs and slugs and snails and all sorts of nice, juicy, creepy crawlies. And they're doing great work in the garden for all the gardeners. And they're sleeping then most of the day. So hopefully they'll find a nice shady spot underneath a hedge or something like that. And they'll roll up into a ball and go to sleep.
Okay, that leads nicely actually to my next question. For people who like to see hedgehogs and might like to see them roaming around the gardens, is there anything we can do to encourage them into our gardens? And what kind of time would we be looking out for them at this time of year?
Okay, well, hedgehogs are generally, they're very much nocturnal animals, so they wouldn't be coming out until it's properly like getting dark. You know, they're most active when it's fully dark, you know, in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But they will be coming out anytime from when it starts getting dusky. So 9:30, 10 o'clock is probably, you know, the time that they start coming out to look for food when it gets cool and dark. If you want to make your garden friendly for hedgehogs, not just hedgehogs, but for any kind of wildlife, really, because what will be good for one will be good for most things, is maybe to just, I suppose, try and keep things a little bit wild if you can, and have a good variety. Have, you know, hedges and shrubs and bushes and trees are good for all sorts of wildlife. If you can use native species, you know, oak and ash and hawthorn and rowan and all of those lovely trees that we have here, all the better. And if you create areas that are supposed to be shelter and food. And the other thing is, if you can, you know, leave areas where the grass grows long and where you have a few nettles and stuff like that, that is all brilliant for wildlife, because that'll provide habitat, a space for things to live, and lots of insects and creepy crawlies will be living there, and that will produce food for the hedgehogs and birds and other animals as well. Things like log piles of logs or sticks or even old stone walls can be very good spots as well for all different little animals to hide out in there. So if you can do that, but of course you don't have to let your garden be a jungle either. You know, there's lots of things you can do with, lots of really nice, quite well kept urban gardens. Hedgehogs will visit them regularly as well. So as long as you've got a bit of variety, plants and grass and areas like that, the hedgehogs can come. So if you want to kind of juice it up a little bit, you can do things like maybe put in a little hedgehog house, or if there's hedgehogs coming at this time of the year, it's particularly important. Will you make sure that there's some water out there for them? Because pools of water can be hard found in some places. I know where we are now, there's no water anywhere on the ground, so they need to drink. So put out bowls of water for them, and you can always give them a little bit of a top up of food if you want to. You don't have to. So things like cat food and stuff like that will be the best thing to give them.
Okay. Just from my own personal experience, just to add there, make sure your drains have covers on them, because when they get really thirsty, hedgehogs will try and get to the water and they may fall in and they can't get out. So just make sure you've got drains if you're providing water, or if you have a pond, a garden pond. Is there anything special you can do to make sure it's safe for hedgehogs?
Yeah, ponds, and the other thing similarly they fall into is cattle grids and stuff. So keep an eye on them. But if you can make a gentle kind of a slope coming out of your pond, if you have a pond with steep sides, if you can put even a plank of wood in there, you can always wrap a bit of chicken wire or something around the wood to give it a bit of grip, and so that if any animal falls in there, they will be able to climb out. And the same with drains or with cattle grids and stuff as well. Okay. And just to keep an eye on them. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So we're going to come back to the hedgehogs in a little bit, to some of the facts and things like that about them. But I want to bring in Carmel at this point, because we're going to chat a little bit. Hi, Carmel. We're going to chat a little bit about the wonderful story that you created for us. Do you want to give us a very quick introduction and tell us what the story is about before I show the video?
Well, yeah, the story is about Harley the Hedgehog. And it's about Holly from when she was first born, in fact, even before she was born, and what she does and how she manages until she's 6 weeks old, and then she goes out on her own. So I've got another little hedgehog who tells the story. It actually reads the story from a book called Harley the Hedgehog. And it's all made with shadow puppets, so it's something that you could do at home. You could make your own shadow puppets and make up your own stories.
Okay, excellent. And we're going to show a little bit after this video. Actually, Carmel has a lovely video made for us showing us how to do that. So we'll start first with Holly, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
It's called Harley the Hedgehog, and I'm going to read it. One night, Mommy Hedgehog was very, very busy. By the morning, she had 4 new baby hoglets. The youngest was called Holly. Holly the Hoglet. Holly the Hoglet. Holly had 2 brothers and 1 sister. Mrs. Mommy Hedgehog was very, very busy because she was feeding the hoglets and they were always hungry. When Holly was born, she didn't have any spines. No spines. No, she didn't have any spines. But within a few hours, Holly had grown spines and she was very cute. She had a few spines. There's a picture of her with a few spines. Holly the Hoglet used to play with her brothers and sister. they used to tumble, and they used to play games. One day,
Mommy Hedgehog
said, "Children."
Yes.
Yeah, Mom? Well, you two are 6 weeks old now, and it's time for you to go out and hunt for yourselves.
Yippee!
Yeah, hunt for ourselves? I love hunting! Yes! Bye, Mom!
I can't wait.
6 weeks old. They had to find their own food. You have to find your own food. Oh, yeah, I read that. And Holly was very excited. Holly said goodbye to her brothers and sister and set off on her own. Happy days! I love hunting. There must be a beetle around here somewhere. Maybe I could look for a worm instead. Holly found plenty of food that night, and in the morning Holly made a bed with leaves. When Holly woke up that night, she found a new hedge to explore, and off she went on a new adventure. Oh, great! Somewhere new to explore. Off I go. The hoglet, and she grew up into Holly the Hedgehog. She was so young when she went out on her own. She was very brave. That's my favourite story. I wonder where Holly is now.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that.
That was really, really good. What a wonderful story. And it follows, Elaine, doesn't it? Pretty much what would be happening to little hoglets as they're braving the world for the first time at this time of year, and maybe a little later into August.
Yeah, it does. It's very sweet, I think so, and it very much tells the story of what's happening around now. Yeah.
Is there something, I mean, I know, unfortunately, one of the ways a lot of people see hedgehogs nowadays is on the road. And is there anything we can do to try and be a little bit more careful? Is there certain times of the day when we're driving or when mum or dad are driving that they can be a little bit more conscious of little hollies running around?
Yeah, well, it would be at night time. So any time between dusk and dawn, those are the times, you know, that if you're driving after dark, that's the time when you need to be a little bit aware. I suppose not just of hedgehogs, but a lot of our animals would be nocturnal. So, you know, foxes and badgers and hedgehogs in particular, it's mostly nighttime that they would be out. And they're so intent a lot of the time on snuffling around and looking for food that they're not paying attention to what's coming towards them, and they wouldn't be aware to look out for traffic a lot of the time. So we have got to watch out for them.
Okay. And just for those of you who may have missed it, we did have a live stream earlier in the year where Elaine and Pat Broderick were with us, and Pat showed us how to make a little house for feeding hedgehogs, so as you can kind of keep the other garden animals that you might have, or your cat or dog, away from the food that you leave out. So it's no harm to have a look at that. And if you want to make one of those, it's really important this time of year for them as well, Elaine, isn't it? Because they're trying to fatten up at this time of year. So it's important to try and put some food out if you can. We're going to watch another video now. And Carmel, in this one, what are people going to see in this video?
So this is a video on how to make your own shadow puppets. So it's got the materials in it. There's a list at the start, and you can make shadow puppets really simply, or you can go and buy like more complicated materials. But it's about having fun and coming up with your own ideas.
Your own stories. Okay, guys, I'm going to play it. It's about 10 minutes, just over 10 minutes long. And when we're finished, we'll come back. And if you have any questions, we'll take questions for the chat for Carmel or Elaine. So here we go. We'll play the second video.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Little Gem Puppets. Today we are going to make a simple shadow puppet and a shadow theatre. So the National Museum of Country Life has been focusing on conservation and sustainability this year, and one of the animals that are in decline are hedgehogs. So today we are going to make a hedgehog. Now, first of all, let's take a look at the materials. So the materials for the shadow puppet are some black card, or you can use cardboard from a cereal box or any kind of card you can get on, but black card is the best. Strong black tape. You can use masking tape if you want, but again, strong black tape is best. A lollipop stick. Some other sticks you could use is maybe skewers with the points cut off, or I like to use plant sticks, and a pencil, a scissors, and an eraser. So what we're going to do first is draw the hedgehog. So hedgehogs have pointy snouts and their heads are almost triangular. So we're going to draw the hedgehog first and just do a big hump for the back. So you can draw in spines if you want, but I'm just going to do a nice simple shape. And of course we need to draw in the eye. So that's our hedgehog drawn. Now the next thing we need to do is to cut it out. So let's do that. Now when it comes to the eye, you can just poke your pencil through the hole for the eye. Either very carefully, you could use the tip of your scissors either, and then just bend back the card so that we don't have any pieces of card getting in the way of the eye. So here we have a hedgehog with an eye. Now something you can do that adds some nice detail is, if you haven't drawn in spines, you can just bend the card very gently and take a tiny piece, just a tiny piece of a tiny sliver, and just think about where those marks might be. So you could mark them out with the pencil first, and that's just to give the indication that there are some spines on the hedgehog. So there are some spines on the hedgehog, and now that's in the center. So now I'm going to do a little bit of detailing around the edge. So I'm not going to cut all the spines out, but I'm just going to cut a few little pieces out, and I'm going to do that right around the edge. There we go. So now I've got my hedgehog cut out, and I'm ready to put a stick or a rod on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to stick it onto my lollipop stick, but just halfway. And then this can be a bit tricky, this bit, so I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut 2 slits on either side of the stick, and then I'm going to trim off a little bit of that tape. So this, and then I'm going to wrap those 2 pieces that I've just cut around the stick like a bandage, and now I've got a kind of a T shape. So I'm going to stick that down on top of my puppet, but I'm going to try and avoid sticking the tape over any of the cuts that I've already made. So there we go, I have stuck it down on the puppet, and now I've got loads of control, and also it means that the rod isn't flat against the puppet, so I can hide my hand a little bit from behind the screen. So there's my shadow puppet. And the materials you need for your shadow theatre is a box, a vegetable crate. It can be bigger or smaller than this, and a cardboard box will do if you can't find a vegetable crate. You need some greaseproof paper, some masking tape, or the black tape is fine, and a glue stick. Those are the materials you need to make your shadow theatre, and I have cut a hole out of the box. Now let's make the shadow theatre. So I've got my hole cut out of my box. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my greaseproof paper, measure out the size. Just put that over there for a second, and I'll cut it out. There we go. Now, and I'm just going to check that that's the right size. Perfect. So what I'm going to do here to make things a little bit easier, because you want to get your screen stretched nice and tight. So I'm going to put some glue on the box all around where I'm going to be gluing down the paper, and that's just going to help it stick a little bit better, and it will be just easier to manage to get the tape on and pull it tight this way. Now, so I've got my glue stuck on, and I'm going to just stick in one side first. Just make sure it's nice and tight. Then I'm going to get my tape and tape it down. And there we go. There's my shadow screen. It's like a little television. So now you have a shadow puppet and you have a shadow theatre, and all that's left to do is to put a light behind the shadow theatre. So that could be, you could put it in front of a window, use a torch or use a lamp, but be careful if you're using a lamp. And that's it. Have fun. Bye from Little Gem Puppets.
Excellent stuff, Carmel. That was really, really good. And the great thing about making your own shadow puppet theater is once you have the little TV piece made, you can make up all sorts of stories, cutting out your own shapes and making your own stories and telling your own tales. So what we're going to do at this point, guys, is if you have any questions around the making of the shadow puppets, or indeed about hedgehogs and hoglets, if you'd like to put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. So we're going to do that for a few minutes, just while we're waiting for people to perhaps fill the chat themselves. Carmel, where did you get the box that created the screen? Because that's something that most people might struggle to come across.
I got that box in my local supermarket. So that's like, they're called a vegetable crate. I think, like, apples and oranges and that kind of thing arrive in them, but most local supermarkets will have like too many boxes, and they're delighted to see it coming. I have often come in and called in and taken boxes from them.
Okay, so just ask at your local supermarket and they'll help you out. That's great to know. And the paper then, is that any special type of paper, or can you use, like, the baking, what do they call it? Non-stick baking paper, it's very light like that as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what just like your ordinary roll of greaseproof paper works.
Excellent.
Now but I'll show you while we're waiting here. Sorry for disappearing. What happens, most shadow puppet screens are like a lot of the kind of more, if you're doing like a professional shadow puppet screen, you'd probably use something like this. It's white cotton. So
okay.
Like an old pillowcase would work, and 100% cotton is good. So that's something you could also use if you happen to have an old piece of cotton, and a lot of old pillowcases are made of good cotton. So
Yeah,
you
and
could
that'd be a bit tougher and a bit longer lasting, I guess.
yeah, it would, and it gives you like the image is a little bit clearer than greaseproof paper. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And the card then that you use, that's just any kind of light black card. Does it have to be black card, or can you use any as long as it throws a shadow?
Yeah, you can. So you can use anything. Like the back of a cereal box will work. But the black card again, it just gives you a clearer shadow. So black
Okay.
is good. What you can do is you can get a piece of card and paint it black or color it black. So yeah, you don't have to go and get like special black card if you don't want to.
Okay, that's great. I'm just going to switch to Elaine for a second, because I know, Elaine, that you're not just in UIG, you're also the head of the Irish Hedgehog Survey. I'm tempted to call it the Hedgehog Survey Ireland, but it's not. It's the Irish Hedgehog Survey. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. So as part of my research that I'm doing on hedgehogs, I started up this Irish Hedgehog Survey. So there's been very little research done on hedgehogs in Ireland to date, so we don't have a great idea about what the numbers are like, or what the densities of how many hedgehogs live in different kinds of habitats. So, and we don't really know if the numbers are going up or down, because we know that from the rest of Europe the numbers are going down. So that's what we're trying to gather information now about hedgehogs, where they're living and what's happening with them across Ireland. So at the moment we're running this volunteer survey. So it's called the Irish Hedgehog Survey, and there's a few different ways that people can take part. So one of the first things that people can do is, if they see a hedgehog alive or dead, if you come across one in your garden or on the side of the road or wherever you see one, you can go on to Biodiversity Ireland and just log your sighting there. So there's a special page just for the Irish Hedgehog Survey, and I'll give the link now in a second. So biodiversityireland.ie, and you will find the Hedgehog Survey, and you just log your sighting, tell us where you saw it, how many hedgehogs you saw, was it alive or dead, that sort of thing. And the other way then that people can take part, they can either do a little survey in their own garden. So you can use a nature camera, or you can make a little footprint tunnel, which is a little kind of a cardboard triangular tunnel shape, and it has got a couple of sheets of paper and a couple of little ink pads inside it, and some bait, which is cat food, in the middle. And what happens then is, if you have hedgehogs in your garden, hopefully they will come in and they'll go into the tunnel to eat the cat food, and then they'll walk through the ink, and on the way back out they'll leave little footprints on the paper. So that's a really handy way to tell if you have got hedgehogs in your garden, because they can be a bit hard to spot, seeing as they're out late at night, and they occur in fairly low density, so there wouldn't be swarms around the place. So so that's the other way. And then the final way, then some people are going to take on a bigger survey again, where they take a kilometre square area and they put out 10 tunnels, and then they monitor them for 5 nights, and we see do hedgehogs live within that local area.
Yeah, I've just put irishhedgehogsurvey.com helping hedgehogs in the chat there for folks. Is there another link to, or is that the one? Is that the best one to go to?
Well, that one there is the link for the there's leaflets there on how you can help hedgehogs in your garden or in your local area. So it's handy. It's got nice, easy to read advice on little tips you can do to make your garden hedgehog friendly. But if you just go to irishhedgehogsurvey.com, you can read there about the garden hedgehog survey and the local area survey, and you can also, there's a link directly to the Biodiversity Ireland website as well, where you can log your sightings.
Okay, excellent. I'm not getting very many questions in the chat, guys, so I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up at that. What we promised to do is we'll keep an eye on the video in YouTube. So if you have any questions for Elaine or for Carmel and you post them in that, I'll happily pass them on to the guys and we'll try and get a response for you. I think, though, what we'll do for now, guys, is we'll wrap it up at that, unless anyone has any last minute comments they'd like to make. We're going to call it at that, I think. Again, my thanks to Elaine and to Carmel for popping along this morning, or this afternoon rather, on what is one of the sunniest afternoons I think we've had for a long time. So it's probably why I'd say everyone is watching this outside under sun canopies. So that's what I intend to do, is to hit the sun. Guys, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. If you like what we're doing with the museum, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, subscribe and like our videos. The best way to keep in touch with what we're doing is to visit the museum at www.museum.ie. You can also follow us on Twitter at NMI Ireland. And you can get us on Facebook at National Museum of Ireland. Again, thanks very much to everyone for popping along, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.